All right, good morning. Or afternoon, evening. All right, we are solving multi-step equations to start us off with Unit 2. So the whole purpose of these, we'll be looking at equations, so we'll have an equal sign in the middle, and we're going to be solving for the variable. All right, so the first, we are looking at solving number 1. We have negative x plus 5 equals 3. Now, when you're solving equations, you're doing the opposite of PEMDAS. So instead of doing the parentheses first, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, we're going the reverse. So we're looking at what's being added or subtracted to the variable. So that's a positive 5. And then we're using that inverse operation. So instead of adding 5 to both sides, we're going to subtract. So we get negative x equals negative 2. Because we have 3 minus 5. Now here the x is negative, and we need to isolate the variable x. It needs to be positive 1x. So we have negative 1 times x. Now this comes, it's an interesting predicament, because you can either multiply by negative 1 on both sides or divide by negative 1 on both sides. Since I'm going to look at this as negative 1 times x, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. So we're left with x equals positive 2. Now the great thing with solving equations, you can substitute that value you get back into your original equation to check it. So we're going to check it. So that'll give us negative times 2 plus 5 equals 3. Negative, think of that as negative 1 times 2 will give us negative 2 plus 5 equals 3. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3, so 3 equals 3. So 2 is the solution. Now it's not mandatory that you check it unless I ask you to, but you can quickly assess these. So you never have to ask me if your problem's correct, because one great thing with solving, you can substitute back in and check. All right, so the second one. Here we're going to first combine our like terms. So 4x minus 3x is positive 1x plus 10 equals 2. And then we're going to subtract both sides by 10. So we get x equals negative 8. And that will be our solution. So we're able to combine like terms and then use our subtraction property of equality. Since we're subtracting 10 on both sides, what we looked over today in class, we get an equivalent expression. All right, let's take a look at the next ones. All right, so this third one, we have 3x equals negative x plus 12. Now, when you're solving for a missing variable, you want to move all the variables on one side. So I'm going to move this negative x over. Since I'm subtracting x from both sides, or subtracting x from the side, our inverse operation will be to add x. So I will get 4x equals 12. And then once again, I use my division property of equality. Since I'm dividing both sides by 4, so x equals 3. And once again, since I had 4 times x, I use the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. All right, 4, we have negative 5x minus 10 equals 3x plus 20. Now this one, I do want to get all my like terms together on both sides. So I'm first going to subtract 3x from both sides. And once again, I'm subtracting 3x. Since this is understood to be positive 3x, my inverse operation, when I have a positive value, is subtracting. So 3x minus 3x cancels out. Negative 5x minus 3x is negative 8x minus 10 equals 20. Once again, I'm going to get all my like terms together, so all my constant, my terms that are just numbers. So since I'm subtracting 10, I'll add 10 to both sides. Now I'll get negative 8x equals 30. And then I have negative 8 times x, so since I'm multiplying, my inverse operation is division. So I get x equals negative 30 over 8. Now since this is a fraction, we're going to go ahead and simplify. 30 and 8 share greatest common factor of 2. So this will equal negative 30 divided by 2 gives me 15. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So x equals negative 15 fourths. All right, 5 here, we're looking at some fractions. We're stepping it up a notch, but don't let a fraction intimidate you. Now 5, we have 3/4, open parentheses, x plus 2, close parentheses, equals negative 1. Now once again, with equations, there are multiple ways you can approach these. I'm going to multiply by the multiplicative inverse. So I have 3/4 times x plus 2. Now you could distribute 3/4 out to both of our terms here and then solve from there. but I'm going to use our multiplicative inverse. Now multiplicative inverse, you're going to multiply by the inverse of 3/4 or by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 3/4. Now the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4 over 3. And why you want to multiply by that reciprocal, we get 12 over 12, which is 1. So when you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal, you're going to get 1. And that will allow us to move on. So I'm going to rewrite this so that we can see it a little better. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4/3. Once again, 4/3 over 3/4 will give us 12 over 12, which is 1. So that's the beauty of it. So we're left with x plus 2 equals -1 over 1. We'll get -4/3. Once again, -1 times 4 is -4. 1 times 3 is 3. So I can write this without parentheses. So I'll subtract 2 from both sides. So we will get x equals -4/3 minus 2. Now when we subtract fractions, we have to have the same denominator. So think of that -2 as -2 over 1. I need a denominator of 3. So I can multiply 1 by 3 to get a denominator of 3. Once again, whatever we do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. So now we're able to combine. -4 minus 6 is -10, and then you leave your denominators the same. So x equals -10/3. And once again, to check this, we'd substitute back to the original equation and solve from there. All right, the sixth one, we have 2x plus 3 plus 2x over 3 plus 9 equals -7. All right, here we're not going to do anything with the multiple, the multiplying x by 2 or the 3 until we subtract both sides by 9. So we'll get 2x over 3 equals -16. Now we're going to move on, similar to what we did on 5. Now this one you can approach a few different ways. You can think of this as 2 times x over 3, so you can multiply both sides by what we divide by 3 and then divide both sides by 2. Another way you can take a look at this expression is 2/3 x equals -16. So once again, we have another time we can multiply by the multiplicative inverse, or that reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2. Once again, 3/2 times 2/3 will give us 1, so we'll be left with x equals. Since we're multiplying, we get negative, if we do 16 times 3, here we get 8, 1, 48, so we get -48 over 1 times 2, which is 2, so x equals -24. Now, if you went ahead and multiplied both sides by 3, that would give you 2x equals -48, and then you divide by 2 on both sides, so you get x equals -24. And once again, that's the beauty of solving equations. There's not just one way to solve. And at the end, you're doing the same computations, you get the same answer, but you can approach it differently, which is great about these. All right, let's take a look at 2 more. So 7, we have 13x minus 4 times 2x minus 5 equals 15. Now with this one, we're going to need to distribute this -4 to both of the terms in order so we can combine our like terms since we have a variable in our parentheses. So we get 13x, -4 times 2x is -8x, -4 times -5 is +20 equals 15. So these are distributive property of equality. And now we're going to combine like terms. 13x minus 8x, we get +5x plus 20 equals 15. And now we have a two-step linear equation. So once again, we're going to subtract 20 from both sides. So we will get 5x equals -5, and we'll divide both sides by 5. So we will get x equals -1. On 8, and once again, to check it, we can substitute back in. 8, we have 4 equals 2/3 x plus 9 minus 1/3 x. Now this one, before we combine our terms, I'm going to subtract 9 on both sides just so we can get the fractions isolated. So 4 minus 9, which will give us -5, equals 2/3 x minus 1/3 x. Now here we're going to use a property where we combine like terms. Now one nice thing with this one, we are going to combine two 2/3 x minus 1/3 x. We have like terms since they both have a variable x, exponent 1. And one great thing here, we already have a common denominator. So you can really think of this as 2/3 minus 1/3. It just happens it's going to have the x attached at the end. So since we have the same denominator, our denominator is 3. 2 minus 1 is 1, so we get 1/3 x. Now once again, we need to isolate that variable x. We're going to multiply by our multiplicative inverse. So once again, multiply by the reciprocal of 1/3, which is 3 over 1, or simply 3. Once again, 1/3 times 3 over 1, or 3, we'll get 3 over 3, which is 1. So multiply both sides by 3. So we get negative 15 equals 1x. Using our symmetric property of equality, I can write this as x equals negative 15. All right, tomorrow in class we'll be working on problems where we will be solving for the equation. Hope you have a great night.